So today may feel a little bit different. When we were at Canuga, the 5 of us who were there representing our church, there was a class that I was interested in taking. It was taught by Reverend Beth Head, and it was a class for credit. Ministers and licensed teachers have to kind of keep their credits up to date. And so I thought, well, I'll do that, and I'll just kind of be there. The title was Diversity, and I thought that's good. Reverend Beth Head is a minister who's now retired. She was in Florida in a church for a long time, and she is our area representative, regional representative. So part of that role is when churches are in trouble or whatever, she's called in to try to help move through things. Some of you may have never heard of trouble in church before, but having been in this work for 36 years, it happens, even in unity. And so we got in there, and the class really, she said, well, I use that title, and I want to be forthright about, why we're here. She said, really, this class is about addressing the chasm that exists in our country today, the division that exists in our country today, and what we as Unity students can do to do our part to help close that gap. And so it was interesting. She had us take a little test in order to start, and before she did, she said, in my work in Florida, she said a number of the churches, the larger churches in a number of the big cities there, are experiencing difficulty, and a lot of it is due to this division. And she said, in fact, some of the larger churches are selling their churches. They're having to downsize. She didn't know all the reasons around that. She thought it might have had a lot to do with finances. But she said it could well be that a good part of it is due to this challenge that presents itself as a polarizing force, not only in churches, but of course, across our nation. And so I'm not here to talk about politics per se today, but I'm here to talk about what we can as Unity students do to do our part in dissipating that polarization. Abraham Lincoln wrote a piece that most of us have heard more than once. It was from his inaugural in 1861. He, of course, took office at a very critical time in our country. We are not enemies, but friends. We must not be enemies. Though passion may have strained, it must not break our bonds of affection. The mystic chords of memory will yet swell the chorus of the union, when again touched, as surely they will be, by the better angels of our nature. And she went on to explain that the Better Angels is the name of a nonprofit that's made itself known in our country, and you'll hear more about it as time goes along, to help bridge those gaps, to help us depolarize where we are with this. And she said Unity is, of course, the perfect place to bring our energies to making that difference. She had us take a little quiz, and it's called Recognizing My Inner Polarizer. So bear with me. I'm just going to hit on a couple of these to see how it hits you, because it struck me. Here I am a minister, and I'm someone who's very interested in politics and our nation and our country and so forth. I don't talk about politics. I haven't for 36 years, and I don't intend to start today. You won't know what my political affiliation is, I hope, by the end of the time. But I will tell you that in my years in ministry, I had one occasion that jarred me. It was in our church in Austin, where I served for 10 years, and Mary served with me. And a lady came through the line one morning, and she was in tears. And she said, "Am I the only fill in the blank in this church?" She had been to a training, and in that training, the folks that were in there felt very free to talk about their political preferences, and that wasn't the place for that. And so they assumed that everybody was of the same political persuasion, and we're not. In unity, we have folks that are this way and here in the middle, and all kinds of beautiful, beautiful representations of our own consciousness. But it really caused me to stop and think, and this little test did even more so in the modern day. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1, I rarely or never think that way, and 10, I think that way all the time. How often do I find myself thinking about those people on the other political side without much regard for the variation among them? A second piece, how often do I find myself assigning myself mainly self-serving or negative motive? How often do I find myself assigning mainly self-serving or negative motives to the other group and mainly positive motives to my group? It's really a mind-opening awareness that can come to us. And I had to be honest in doing the test. It was only for my eyes, but I thought, wow, I thought I was a little more spiritual than that. One more question. How often do I find myself comparing the worst people on the other side with the best people on my side? Now, you get the idea. And the work of this organization is not about saying this group is right and this group is wrong. It's about how do we use the better angel nature of our own consciousness to depolarize, to bridge the gap. Now, I prayed about speaking about this today to my home church because it is something that's not typical for me. But I'm wanting to make you aware of several things. One, this group called Better Angels, because they are a nonprofit that's willing to come into different scenarios, churches, businesses, whatever it might be, and help each group see more clearly the sides of the other side, to release some of those names that we assign to the other group, regardless of what group we may find ourselves in. And of course, they derive their name Better Angels from the name that Abraham Lincoln mentioned in that beautiful address. Will yet swell again the chorus of the Union, when again touched as surely they will be by the better angels of our nature. In unity, we call ourselves practical Christianity. Practical Christians or practical Christianity, because we are the teachings of Jesus employed in our daily life. It really allows those teachings to take hold when we're able to walk the talk, as Mary said, to see that light in the others when we're in prayer, when we're seeking to change our feelings about whatever might be there, but also to do so in a way that is constructive, in a way that is proving to us the efficacy of doing that. Right now, our beautiful friends, Karen and Jim, are walking the pilgrimage. They're walking the Camino Trail. And I'm reminded of the prayer that they're praying. I know it's not only for them and us here, but it's for all the people in their lives. Guardian of my soul, guide me on my way this day. Keep me safe from harm. Deepen my relationship with you, your earth, and all your family. Strengthen your love and Holy Spirit within me, that I may be a presence of your peace and a light in our world. Would it be safe to say that our political scene needs more light? It needs more light, and it needs more lightness, and it needs our light. Regardless of how we approach our understanding of those dynamics, our appreciation for one side or the other or whatever's in the middle, there is a need for our light, and that need for that light, I think, is especially true in this coming year, because we're about to move into the full year of this election, of the general election for November of 2020. And it doesn't mean that we can't be vigorous in our debate if we're debating with someone about this. It's totally not saying that, but it does mean that we're also vigorous in our respect and our love for each other if we're to really, truly walk this beautiful, beautiful walk that God has given us. So I'm back in Ernest Holmes' book. I quoted from his piece around Paul a little bit earlier. And he goes on to say, this, though still on this earth, we need no longer be entangled in bondage. Now, Mary talked about changing our thoughts in that meditation, and thank you for that. And she also talked about changing our what? Feelings, our feelings. Now, do we do that to appease the minister? Do we do that to appease a relative or someone else? We do that because this teaching reminds us that when we do that, we heal. And our circle of healing spreads out. When I do serious, intentful healing work, Mary, seated next to me often in our home, feels it. And I feel the same effect from her. But it's not limited to walls, is it? It goes out. Quantum physics explains how that happens. I'm not going to attempt to explain it because I don't understand it totally myself, or even partially. But I do know that we are indeed one. And so when we endeavor to do healing work with our own feelings, whether it's about politics or about a falling out with a friend or a relative, whatever it might be, by allowing ourselves to simply be with that feeling, free of thoughts about it, just to be in the energy of that feeling and not put ourselves down for feeling it. We can do that, can't we? I shouldn't feel guilty. I shouldn't feel angry. I'm a good Unity student. I've been doing this. I'm a minister. I've been doing this for 36 years. I shouldn't get upset. Whoops. It happens, right? We do. And it's up to us to catch ourselves when we can, feeling that feeling, whatever it might be, and just allow ourselves to go to that sense, that feeling itself, free of judgment. When we do, Dr. David Hawkins, in his beautiful work, Surrender, reminds us that when we do, well, it's actually entitled Letting Go, the Pathway of Surrender. When we do, a lot of that trapped energy below that feeling is released, and the thoughts around it are released. So I'm gonna do a whole series on that piece in the month of November. A good time to let go. As you're letting go of your money, getting ready for Christmas, it's a good time to let go of a lot of other stuff too, right? It's a great way to end the year, and I'm going to do a 3-week series on that in November. But suffice it to say, it is a beautiful tool for helping us recognize and realize that we are at cause in this beautiful world of ours, and especially in our nation. This was the dynamic secret of Jesus. He had discovered the laws of mind and spirit which parallel physical laws and which, without destroying physical laws, transcend them. Because of this knowledge, we had dominion over the physical world. Jesus said, be in the world, but don't be of it, of the world, right? So we can be in the world and live an amazing life, as I know that's the goal of all of us here. We can be engaged in beautiful discussions and important discussions about the things that matter to us. But at the same time, we don't have to let that define us or drag us down or pull us away from who we truly are, that expression that the Daily Word reminded us of. We need not deny the physical world, but rather affirm a spiritual world transcendent of the physical, making the physical a servant of the spiritual. So, and that's Ernest Holmes' words and Jesus' words and Paul's words a little bit earlier. So there's a practical mantra that I'd like to teach you. And those of us who were at Canoga got to learn this chant from the beautiful singer that is Ricky Byers, singer and songwriter, an amazing spiritual being. And it's real simple. We don't need the words. I told Devison we don't need the words on the board for this, but this is the way it goes. I let the love wash over me. I let it be. It's that simple. I let the love wash over me. I let it be. Isn't that beautiful? So now we do it collectively. We let. Let's try it. We let the love wash over us. We let it be. I want to ask you to close your eyes for just a moment. We hear words that sometimes ignite feelings within us. And our tendency, we know from this beautiful teaching in unity, reminds us that our tendency is so often to project, if those words just weren't spoken, if that individual just wasn't doing that, if this situation would change, I wouldn't have to feel this way. And yet the unity foundational teachings and the teachings of Jesus remind us that the kingdom of heaven is within. It is within. We all walk with the ultimate power to make that shift and to feel those feelings, whatever they may be, free of judgment. And when we do, we brighten our light in our inner world. And that brighter light of our inner world is reflected in our outer world. We enhance our consciousness. In the words of Dr. David Hawkins, we move up the scale of the map of consciousness from the lower vibrations of anger and frustration, bitterness, fear, to a place of courage. And beyond that place of courage to a place of reason and love and joy. The place that we are all destined to experience as we unfold our spiritual nature. And so I teach us this mantra, this beautiful piece that if we just say it, if we sing it, it matters not, but it's a reminder that when those stimuli come our way, something said on the email or through the television or radio, whatever it might be, that we stop ourselves, we catch ourselves in that moment to say, I choose peace instead of this. I do want to be this light in the world. It's not that we're going to do it all the time, even if we do it only part of the time. It is a measure of peace that is restored to us. We let the love wash over us. We let it be. Let's do that again. We let the love wash over us. We let it be. And so, loving God, we thank you for the sound of a child. We thank you for her teacher. We thank you for the beautiful home that she lives in. We thank you for this home that we live in, that we call our spiritual home. And we thank you for the sacred home that beats beneath our heart, that is the metaphoric place of your kingdom living within each of us. We give ourselves on this beautiful time of gathering together complete permission to let our better angels prevail, not only with these things that we've had called to our attention today, but to whatever might come in our lives, we realize that you've given us these better angels as part of our nature. And so we allow ourselves, each in our own perfect way, a willingness, divine permission to make this shift, to more fully express you in our world, to be kinder and gentler with each other, to be kinder and gentler with ourselves. We breathe into that idea. And we gently bring our awareness back to this moment, grateful that we indeed allow your love to wash over us, to bless us, to nurture us, even as we seek to see that love washing over our dearest friends and even those we might have called our enemies, letting our better angels prevail. And when you're ready, just open your eyes. So just a couple of things before we complete this part of our time together. There is a little sheet that looks like this, Better Angels. If you want to know more about that organization, you can go to their website and learn about things that are going on. They've got a training they're doing in Marietta or Alpharetta, I think, in the end of October. That's one that I noticed that's close, and I'm planning to go to that training. I'm going to let my colleagues know about this particular work. But these are outside. Just before you go in the kitchen door, they're right there on the table. And there's, I think, enough for couples. And if we run out, let one of our board members know, and they'll make some copies for you so you can take one along. But this is not the test, which I fail miserably. But it's not really about that. But it does give you a little information about it. And that quote from Lincoln is on there. So just know that that's there. So just before we receive